Hello, everybody. Good morning, almost afternoon. I am Dr. Victoria Grinman, and I am here with Randi. Randi, so good to be with you today.
It's great to be here again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love our conversations, and we just had a very long conversation about incredible, amazing things. And today we're coming on to share with the parents out there and kind of have this discussion, something that is very, very actually personally, important to me is kindness. And I know that it's so important to you too, is the question, what do you have to do with raising kind kids? And we're really targeting this question to any caregiver who works with children, right? Anybody, who works with children, who raises children, who has anything to do with kids or developing human beings. Like, what do we have to do with raising kids who are kind human beings? And so, what an important question. And what do you think about this? Like, what is our responsibility?
Right. So it's a big responsibility. It's always a big responsibility because it is our responsibility. And I've actually, when I think about it, I think of there was a Hall & Oates song in the early 80s, I think, Private Eyes. They're watching you. They're watching your every move. So I actually think, right, I think we'll pass on that. But what I love about this song and what it makes me realize is that's exactly what it is with children and grown-ups. Children are always watching us. So it may not even matter sometimes what we say per se, but it's what we do. And they're always watching us. So that means that we definitely have something to do with their kindness and developing kindness because they're always watching us. So I think sometimes it comes down to being mindful to be kind ourselves and then figuring out how that really plays out for our kids. And then what are the next steps after we've done that or after we continuously do that? Because it's not like you're just kind and we're finished and then we're set and we've taught our kids to be kind and move on.
Yeah, this is one of those conversations where, yep, you got it, folks. We are focusing on you, right? There's so many times where we would love to have, like, is there a book? Is there something I can feed my child? Is there like a Kool-Aid I can give them that can just kind of make them kind? But the long, short answer is that it's modeling, right? It's how our children are watching us, and how we behave in the world and who we be in the world has so much to do and is wrapped up in empowerment around how our kids show up. And I can't tell you how many times I've had in my career, parents who are so well-meaning and have so many things going on. They'll kind of like bring their kiddo into the office and they're all kind of all over the place and not grounded, and they have their own stuff going on. They're saying, fix my kid. And I'm like, hold on.
Right.
Because if this is and there's nothing wrong here, no judgment, but if this is what's going on for you and your child is with you a lot, we got to look at that, right? Because whatever we're putting out is also very much impacting how our kids are experiencing it and what they're learning how to be, right? So it all goes back to us.
Absolutely. And I think of it like there's two things that I've been thinking about lately a lot. One is I saw this quote. I feel like in early childhood, you see this quote. It's like, sprinkle kindness like it's glitter, leave a trail behind or something. So I always joke about that because if you've ever used glitter for any reason as an adult or whatever, whether you're early childhood or whether you just like art projects or your child, someone brings home something with glitter gets everywhere. And everywhere. Like months later, yes, you'll find it in the craziest of ways or places. And you're like, I thought I cleaned all that up. So that's really the idea, right? So that's glitter. Glitter, I feel like should be kindness, that it should be sprinkled everywhere. So there's always the leftovers of it. And something that I think really brought this home, and I thought it was very timely that we were going to talk about this today, is all the conversations about Simone Biles pulling out in the Olympics and the reason why she did. And what I noticed a lot was there was a lot of negative comments aimed at her for her choice. You let people down, and this all now, there's lots of conversation about it. But what I think was so clear to me as an adult, for me to be able to say in front of a child, wow, for an athlete to pull out, there's got to be something going on here. Before I would say, how could she do that to her teammates? How could she this? Why wouldn't she that? She must. I feel like there was a lot of judgment and a lot of unkindness focused on her. And I think we don't necessarily realize that those types of things where we are reacting and responding to things going on in the world, that our children are actually listening to us and hearing how we speak.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, a real moment that we've been going through that is so significant in terms of kindness.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and I want to highlight the importance of recognizing that when we react, just like you just, kind of painted this beautiful picture of what's going on currently, right, in the news. When we react to those things, kids are watching, and most of the time we react with our own judgment, right, of like, how could she, or how could this be happening? Right. But what we know as seasoned humans of life, right, because we're not, I'm young and so are you, but we've got some life behind us. We know that there's always a story. There's always a reason. There are things that we don't know. And the only way we know that is because we've had stuff happen in our life and we've made decisions, and people have maybe said things about us, or, and we realize, wow, the whole story is not always out there for people to see. And, being compassionate versus judgmental and critical of other people is an important thing to recognize. And so how do we pass that on to kids so they don't have to wait 20, 25, 30, 35 years to learn that, wait a minute, people have stuff going on. People make decisions for different reasons. What we see in the news is not always how it is. And so, how we react. So that's a great tip for people out there is how are you responding to life? Right? Like how are you responding to the things that are going on? What are your kids watching in you? I like that.
And what are they watching other adults? The sports commentators and other people commenting about things. What are they seeing other people doing depending on their age? And it's interesting because I think of something else also that always was very significant to me when I first started teaching. Was, I think this is attributed to Ben Franklin, but it's tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. And that I feel like is sort of where kind of applies to kindness, because then I'll hear teachers or parents, that's not nice, don't do that, or why did you do that, that wasn't so nice, or why'd you pull that toy away, that wasn't nice, in our classroom we're nice. And again, I'm not saying that that's how everyone speaks, but there's often that undertone. So when we tell a child to be nice, that's actually kind of goes right out the window at some point, because it's not internalized. It's just someone told me. So you could have told me that the capital of a state is something, and I'm not going to remember that necessarily either, right? Yeah. When I teach it, when I'm mindful about teaching, that deepens the learning potential, right? Because I'm doing it in a thoughtful way. So that could be where we're modeling. Right? We're modeling, that's teaching. So the child is going to say, oh, I remember, my mom said, oh, Simone Biles, there's got to be a story, because that's like a big thing to do. And then the child might say, oh, someone did something really mean. I wonder if there's a story behind that. Right? Mm-hmm. But the next layer is involving. children and involving others, that's where the internal development starts to happen. And I think the way we do that is we see, let's say I hear my child say, oh, there must be a story behind that, let's just say, right? Then I can say, wow, you really are realizing that it's more than meets the eye. There's often undercurrents of things that we don't know that are happening. That's really so interesting that you notice that. That's the next level. And that's for an older child. That's a way to do that.
Yeah, I like what we're talking about because, depending on the developmental stage of a kiddo, we can insert that and involve them in different ways. And what we're really talking about is not so much school smarts, but this is the emotional, social smarts that is really relevant to us getting along in the world with other people. So what you're talking about is asking good questions, sort of pointing to curiosity. Because I think about what is kindness? Like if we really roll it back, right? And we are thinking about what is kindness even? It causes me to think about mindfulness, being present in the moment in a compassionate way with another human being, with yourself, with just the situation. And that takes some skill, right? Because we are very reactive creatures a lot of the time. Right. And so to me, kindness is about being able to stop and check in and reflect and ask good questions and investigate and, compassion, towards what's happening before judgment towards what's happening. What is kindness to you? Because I know that people watching are kind of like, what does this even mean? Like, what am I even, right. How do I know? How do I know when I'm not being kind and my child's watching? How do I know when it's a good moment or a moment where I can, kind of, there's a rupture and I have to repair it? So what do you think? How can parents identify that within themselves?
So I think you really reflected on something that I think kindness goes hand in hand with compassion, right? And it's self-compassion, because obviously it has to start where you feel kind and compassionate towards yourself, even if you're having a hard day or you're overwhelmed or something happened that you weren't expecting and you're disappointed. It's having compassion and saying, you know what? I worked hard on this. It didn't go the way I wanted. I'm going to have to as I can be. It's kind of being patient and understanding and compassionate. I feel like it all gets put into that whole space of kindness. And I think that sometimes it's more about noticing that in ourselves first before we can actually notice or attribute it to others. Because that kind of comes where social emotional learning and intelligence come, because we don't understand what things feel like for ourselves or notice that something doesn't feel good or makes us feel upset. Then it's hard for us to be compassionate and understanding and kind to somebody else. So I think, even though we were saying, Victoria, that sort of the responsibility falls on the parents to model and things like that, I think the work really starts with ourselves first. And that's giving us kindness and compassion and understanding, modeling that and vocalizing that.
Yeah.
That is really an important starting place.
Yeah. So it's not something necessarily we can just manufacture. It's something that first has to come from our own, hate to say the word work, but it's internal work. It's internal exploration. It's play. It's fun actually to kind of, take a look internally, and say, what's going on for me? How am I behaving or kind of taking on the day? And, parents out there who are watching, or teachers who, work with kids a lot, or whomever you are, you can kind of say, how am I being in the world? Because that is going to inform, what our children are seeing. and what they're, you know, copying and kind of playing out as well. So I really like that. I like that a lot. And you actually had, you know, prior to this talk, we were talking and you had an experience with your son. And I hope that you can share just a little bit of it, because you had an experience of sharing something with him, you know, to calm him down about something. And at the same time, you were like, wait a minute, this also applies to me. And it was this beautiful experience. Can you share that with us? Because I think that that's a good example of when we can look over here and it certainly impacts our kids out there.
Yeah. And then it can actually circle back and impact us again. So
Yeah.
absolutely, I would love to share that. So, and I think it really does apply to modeling things and searching within yourself and acknowledging within yourself. And then it kind of comes, you see how your child is doing that. So my child, when I brought him up to sleepaway for the first time, and he's never gone to sleepaway camp before. And he's definitely anxious about being away from home, really looking forward to going. And we talked a lot about you miss home and feel sad about that, but still be having fun in camp. And that's something I train a lot of teachers and parents and work with parents on, separation anxiety. And that really is separation anxiety in grade school happening. Your child's going off to camp and there's a little nerves about being away from home. And one of the things I said to my son is, listen, you can do hard things. That's something we can choose to do. We don't just not do things because they're hard. So it's hard. It feels hard to go away to sleepaway camp because you're going to miss us, but you can go and do that and have a good time. And then on my drive back, it was quite a number of hours. I said to myself, wow, I can actually do hard things too. Because I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss him. What am I going to do? It's going to be so quiet. I'm not going to be able to talk to him. How am I going to manage? It's going to be so hard. And I was like, oh, wait, I can do hard things too. And I wanted to model that. But then I reminded myself that actually that was something I was doing and can do. And that's sort of the beauty, I think, of working and living with and interacting with children in any kind of setting. It's because ourselves, again, if we are seeking within ourselves to see how we are doing with being kind or compassionate or doing hard things, then we can be a model to anyone else, actually. And when we see them doing it, and when you know he was ready to get out of the car, I said, wow, look at that. That's like courage and excitement all wrapped in together. Amazing. You know, and that was my way of acknowledging, you know, and that's the piece. It's not just keeping it within. It's sort of acknowledging, seeking, acknowledging. I think it kind of all comes hand in hand, that it's work for ourselves, but it's work that we also get to do with the young people that we interact with.
Yeah. And what you're really pointing to is what I share with a lot of the parents that I coach is it's parenting as a skill, right? Like we have skills in terms of raising and implementing discipline. But the biggest part of the journey is not learning the tools and strategies of how to do the parenting thing. It's about the parenthood experience and journey that is inherently, you know, involved with having a child with you that is developing, because as they're developing and as you're contributing, you're also getting the stuff, you're getting the goods, you're kind of noticing yourself, you're reinventing yourself, right? They say when a child is born, so is the parent, right? And so it's this, I want parents out there to know that it's this exciting exhilarating journey, if you want it to be, of parenthood.
That's
where
right.
you can look over here, and it doesn't have to be such hard work. It could be, ooh, like, how am I showing up that's really helping contribute to who this child is going to be in the world? And how can I look over here and tweak some things, or what's over here that I haven't looked at for years that can really inspire my child, or, that I haven't looked at, but now there's a reason to. And so this beautiful journey of parenthood or caregiving, where it doesn't have to be painful. It could be so fun.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
Yeah. And we talk about that a lot. You have a lot of examples where it's fun. It's fun to kind of notice things within yourself and say, oh my gosh, I can really do hard things. I know, because I'm doing it myself. And now my kid's going through something tough, and I don't have to squash it. I don't have to tell him, no, you don't feel uncomfortable. You're going to have fun. You can say, hey, buddy, like, you can be sad and also anxious a little bit about not seeing me every day, and be happy at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, I think you pointed out something that I think is so important, that often when it comes to parenting, there's so much focus on the struggles, the challenges. I feel like there's so much out there these days that wants to acknowledge the difficulties and the hard stuff and the juggling. And there's a lot of that. Like, I hear you, we see you. I think sometimes we would all benefit if we pause for a moment and say, caregiving of children actually can be fun, enjoyable, exciting, and it can unearth lots of great things within yourself. And that, I think, makes it not, and again, yes, there are many challenges, and there are things that are enormously difficult, and there's trauma, and there's all kinds of difficulties for sure. But I think if we embrace the piece of, this is an awesome opportunity to be in partnership with a developing human, where I get to sort of bring out things about myself that maybe I haven't even noticed or paid attention to, or I can do better because of that relationship. And I feel like that's something that you definitely see and appreciate and point out. And I think that's a real important piece, because it's not like it should be hard. And I think sometimes when we shift a little bit, it feels hard because it's different, maybe, if we're thinking about things differently. So it feels hard. But again, we can do hard, and they not miserable either. Doing something hard is not necessarily a negative thing. It actually can be positive. And I think that you were just really reminding everyone of that. That's so important, because it can be fun and joyful.
Yeah. And it's certainly a mindset shift for a lot of people, because some of us, what I experience a lot with working with parents is this, all right, I'm settled, because we're having children later and later and later in life. And so it's like, I'm settled, everything's good. I've got my mate in life. I have, or not, I don't know. People have children different ways nowadays. And, I have my job, I have my family, everything's good, blah, blah, blah. And then you have a child, and that child starts bringing stuff up in you. And you're like, wait a minute. I don't want to look over there. I don't want to look at this. I already dealt with that, or I decided to put it to rest. And it's like, oh, no. But, you can be that way. And it feels like a struggle, or we can kind of sort of not succumb, but kind of surrender to the process and journey of looking within and saying, all right, like, what is my relationship to kindness? How do I deal with road rage? How do I deal with someone who gives me, some shit on the street and, says something to me out of nowhere? How am I going to deal with that? How do I deal with relationships? How do I deal with friends that, annoy me? How do I deal with gratitude and what's my involvement with appreciation. So if we start doing that and looking within, that's certainly going to impact the kids that live with us or work with us.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Definitely. And I think also, Victoria, that you're bringing up something very important, that often when we're not around children, we don't have all these other things. We think we don't have to think about these things. But I actually think that that's sort of part of where our whole society is a little just missing out, because we could be thinking about our kindness when we're at work. We could be thinking, and we should be thinking about all these things. And I think especially after this, and I don't even know if say after, but within this whole pandemic that we've been experiencing, there's been so much internal focus, meaning like we haven't had to really deal with other people so much. We've been separated from people. We haven't been going into work as much. Maybe now it's happening more, but now there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think when that happens, we almost forget that we have, the way I think of it almost is an obligation in a way in this world as a human, when I interact with others, that I want to bring my best self. And we're all human. It's hard to do sometimes, and nobody's perfect, but it's work to do regardless of whether we're interacting with children or not. But children have such a wonderful way of bringing about our awareness. And when we have awareness, we help and acknowledge it and we're help building their awareness. And that is so important, because that's really the root of sort of developing as a human and having relationships that are successful with other people.
Yeah. Very, very well said. So well said that Vanna agrees. Vanna so agrees.
She agrees. Thank you, Vanna.
Yeah, she's a stamp of approval. I love this conversation. As you know, my business is Growing Kind Minds. I just love it so much because it's all so interrelated, and we can all help one another.
Right.
It's not out of your hands as parents to raise kids who are kind. So Randi, thank you so much for participating in this convo with me. And everyone out there who watched, yeah, it was awesome. So you and I will be back, right? We're going to set up a whole slew of other conversations to have related to kids and parenting and the parenthood journey. If anyone out there who's watching has any recommendations or questions, we are happy to answer them, right? So we can take those, or we're going to be posting about things that really matter to parents. So thank you everyone for joining. And Randi, we'll speak soon.
All right. Looking forward. Thank you.
Bye.